Happy Monday, everybody. It's also Labor Day, so happy Labor Day weekend to you all. It's another edition of Ask Mike. Courtney Mims alongside Mike Irwin here. Mike, we have to go right into the questions this week because you answered every single one, and we have a ton about the Hogs' first game of the season. So let's jump right in. The first one is from Jerry Derrick over email. And he says, what questions did Saturday answer for you? I love the secondary play, and our two transfer receivers are the real deal. But the running game was flat to me.
Yeah, that's a common complaint by some fans who are looking to complain about a game in which you win 56-13. Look, I was looking for the passing game all along because I understand why Dan Enos was brought in. I mean, it's understood that Arkansas is going to have a running game with the backs that they've got and the offense that they've got. But we knew all along that with Enos, what they're trying to do is give Arkansas, is trying to put teams that sell out to stop the running game. The answer is, okay, you do that, now we're going to do this to you. And that's exactly what happened. So it was perfect. I was looking to see if you needed to throw it. I think they were going to throw it a lot anyway. And then I just think Western Carolina played right in their hands by doing exactly what they wanted him to do, which revealed Arkansas's passing game. So the questions were, those two transfer receivers, what do we say about them? We said they've never played on the Division I level, right? So what did they do? They both had touchdown catches. There were three guys that had touchdown catches, and it was like 60, 80, 70, something like that. They were big plays. And Isaac Tesla even showed that he can block out on the edge. So I don't think you could have had a better day for answering the question I had, which was the number one question, which was, how's the passing game going to look? Now, I mean, let's talk about the run game. Less than 100 yards for Rocket. So people are concerned about that because they want him to win the Heisman. The idea is to win games, not win the Heisman. So if he doesn't win the Heisman, which he wasn't going to anyway, I'm telling you, I've addressed this before. Only way he wins the Heisman is Arkansas gets in the college football playoffs. That would be difficult. And he can still come back. I expect him. Sam Pittman said in his Monday morning press conference, anything that we weren't really great at, we're going to correct. So, okay, that's a little bit of an issue, but there were reasons why that running game didn't work. They lined up to stop it. Also, think you had a starter that was out that's going to be back in this week.
Brady Latham. Yeah.
So we'll see. I think they'll probably run it more on this week on purpose because they want to be able to do both. But this game answered, to me, questions about the passing game, and that's what I was looking for.
Yeah, and Sam Pittman literally said as well in this Monday morning press conference that was all Western Carolina came in the game to do. They said we have to stop Arkansas's run. So they did that effectively. But what I think a lot of people weren't prepared for, and maybe now they see, is that Arkansas's passing game is a real threat this season.
It looks really good.
And that's what we all wanted to see.
There's a definite improvement there.
Absolutely. More questions about that game against Western Carolina. Another one from Joe Looper via a text message to you referencing that Western Carolina game. According to what I've been reading, I expected the defensive line to be amazing with some problems still in the secondary. I had that backwards. Do you agree?
Well, part of this is the way fans perceive how the media covers something. So what was happening during the month of August? We were going over there every day and going and talking about, look at the depth in the D-line.
And there is a lot of depth in the D-line.
Look at all how big these guys, and the coaches were saying that. And I think they assumed, okay, if they're talking so much about the D-line and they're not saying as much about the secondary probably still stinks like it did last year. There was a lot of people that were saying that as August rolled on. Yeah, but the secondary is going to be awful. And so maybe we didn't do a good enough job of talking about what they were doing back there. But there's been a definite improvement back there. We saw it. Now, here's another issue. You've got people that are looking at the fact that they threw for over 200 yards, that they had 18 first downs, that they actually had a little bit more time of possession that Arkansas had. And they're saying, oh, that was all that secondary not stopping them. Well, you came up with 4 picks, right?
Yeah.
So if you have 4 picks in a recovered fumble, I don't care what you do. You can let a team go 12 plays. And if they get down to the 2-yard line and you pick off a pass, it doesn't matter. You've just eliminated everything they did. So I don't have any complaints with the secondary because I think they did what they were supposed to do. most of the time the coverage was really good. You're not going to find a secondary in America, I don't care who it is, that covers every receiver on every play. Somebody's going to get open eventually. So I didn't see a whole lot of that. A lot of those, when you talk about 18 first downs, 5 of those were on penalties.
Yeah.
Those penalties
And
sustained those
yes.
drives. And you don't have a lot of that statistic stuff that we're talking about offensively for them if you don't have the penalties.
And that's what they need to clean up, and Sam Pittman knows that.
Exactly. So again, I'm not worried about the secondary. When you get that many takeaways, you've done what I want you to do.
Well, it's not even the takeaways, right? The 5 turnovers led to 28 of those 56 points that they scored. Over half, right? Over half, if
Yes.
I'm doing the math right there.
I mean,
that's a lot.
When you look at Arkansas' stats, there wasn't anything remarkable about their passing numbers or their rushing numbers. So how did they score all those points? They had a short field because of all those turnovers, which is good. You want your defense to help you.
Exactly. You want the defense to create offense, and that's exactly what happened on Saturday. I was very impressed with that. Pig's Feet on Hogville asked, could you give us your grade for the O-line, D-line, and secondary play and the special teams?
Yeah, I give the offensive line a B. I'm not going to make total excuses for them.
A B? I thought that's higher than I thought you would have graded them.
Yeah, B's fine. They weren't awful. Again, considering what was going on out there, I think if Sam Pittman had it in his head, if he'd told Dan Enos, we want to run it, we got to establish our running game, it would have been a different story. But they were intentionally trying to throw it. Now, I'm not saying there were times when they tried to put Rocket on the edge. To me, Rocket's not a turn the corner running back. He's not somebody I would want to send out to the corner and have him turn the corner because that takes too long to develop. To me, if you want to attack the corner with a running back, go back to that little air raid thing you got. Just turn and throw it. You've already got somebody on the corner. Put him out there on the corner and throw it to him. And then he can go straight ahead. So a lot of that was trying to get Rocket on the corners and get him to turn, and he didn't do anything. That's not what he is. He's not a speed back. But I thought they were fine. So I give the offensive line a B. I will give the D-line a B too.
Okay.
Again, I think you have to look at the fact that they had 2 sacks, which is not shabby.
No.
They weren't, I don't think they were going all out a lot of times, but they had 2 sacks, but they had 8 thrown for losses plays. So that's 10 basic plays behind the line of scrimmage. Not too shabby. Again, Sam Pittman says anything that was not great, we're going to work on it this week, so you work on the D-line.
Yeah,
but
and they played a lot of different guys on the D-line too. So
they did. There's going to be an adjustment for that because you're going to be doing that, so you need to do it. So sometimes there's not continuity out there. You have 4 guys out there, then they play a series, then you stick 4 more out there, so you maybe don't get the continuity. And he may adjust that some as we go along.
Yeah.
But I'm not concerned about the D-line. Special teams, it couldn't get any better than that.
That was
you
great.
had 2 nice returns by Centennial and a third one that was called back, so his numbers were great. The punting was 49 yards a kick.
Yeah.
Can't ask anything better than that. Kickoffs mostly went into the end zone. I think they ran 2 back for a total of what? I don't know. It was an average of about 18 yards a game, a return, so that doesn't do much for a team. So I don't know where you could find a problem with special teams, so I'd give them an A.
Okay, I like that. I like that a lot. Hog Lady in Red says, I already love this team. Know why? Because to me, most games are won by receivers and defensive backs, the playmakers, and we do have them. Wow.
Yeah, a lot of people will argue with that because they like running backs, they like quarterbacks. But I love this, and I put this in. I love this a post from this lady because this is my line of thinking.
Yeah.
I come from high school ball in the 60s and watching high school ball in the 50s when nobody threw the ball. I'd watch the Dallas Cowboys. I'd watch the NFL and they're throwing the football, and then I watch local games. It was like run the ball, run the ball, run the ball. We had an outstanding receiver on our high school team, and they almost never threw the ball to him. We'd go out, when I was a senior, I remember we'd come out early to the practice field, and they had these practice dummies that they would lay around under the stands in the shade, and we'd lay on there. But the quarterback and this one receiver we had, they'd go out and do run and catch. And we would always say, hey, see if you can overthrow him, and you couldn't. He would, no matter how far he threw that ball, Jimmy could go and get it.
Nice.
And we would just sit there and watch them do that, and then we'd go, we never do that in a game. We did it one time in a game in which we were up by 21 points, which makes no sense. Why are you throwing the ball on somebody when you're up 21 points in the fourth quarter? But they threw the ball to him, and he was so far wide open. I looked up, and there was nobody around it. He threw it. He didn't even turn around. He just kind of did this, and it was right in his hands. And I'm going,
beautiful.
Why do we not do this every time? So I love the passing game.
Yes.
I love receivers, and Arkansas has them. But I also like defensive backs who take the ball away. I don't want to hear about how good somebody is because they knocked the ball out of bounds. Because you bat the ball away, yes, that's better than giving up a long pass play. But I see it happen over and over again. You knock the ball out of bounds when you could have picked it, and the next play they throw a touchdown on you. You can't throw a touchdown somebody on the next play if you intercept the ball. So that's what I love about this secondary too, is they come up with picks. They've got a mentality, when that ball is in the air, I'm taking it.
And they get so excited about it too. I love when they go, because I was filming, when they go back to the sideline, and they are literally like having a party on the sideline when they get a pick. It's great. That kind of energy and enthusiasm is what you want to see from that secondary. And it's something that we didn't really see last year. So I love to see it. Going back to that secondary, Mike, I noticed something. I was flipping my paper here. Pig's Feet question. He said he wanted you to give a grade for the secondary. Can you do that real quick too? Can you give us your grade for the secondary?
I would give them an A.
Yes.
Simply because how many times are you going to get 4 picks and a fumble recovery? So. Again, I love the secondary. They get an A.
I love that. I think as well I would rate them an A. WV Hog fan asks, what is it going to take for KJ to get recognition from ESPN that he is a top-notch quarterback? He was not listed on Mel Kiper's top 6 quarterbacks to be drafted in 2024. And in a halftime discussion, they listed top quarterback performances on Saturday, and KJ was not mentioned, while others with lesser numbers were mentioned.
Okay. I saw KJ mentioned in other outlets.
I have seen KJ mentioned
So
a lot.
why would you worry about ESPN? I've talked about ESPN. There's a reason why they're losing subscribers. And it's not because they're televising a lot of games, which they are. The best thing about ESPN is that you can watch all these games and all these other sports that they've worked it out with colleges who have their own cameras and their own people. So you can watch a volleyball match on ESPN3. You can watch soccer. You can watch a lot of things that you normally in the old days didn't get to watch. So that part of ESPN's good. The bad part of ESPN is the idiots on the air that get on there and analyze who don't know what they're talking about because they've got a closed mentality. They've got about 12 teams across the country that they know something about, and they just ignore everybody else. I would not worry that he's not being mentioned right now. Here's what these yo-yos will do. If Arkansas continues to win, they'll wake up about 5 or 6 weeks into the season and start talking about him. Yeah. So I wouldn't worry about it right now. He's getting attention from other media outlets.
I've seen that as well. It's interesting because I didn't notice he wasn't on those lists that WV Hog fan was saying, but I have seen him on plenty of other stuff, Sports Illustrated, and
I mean, if you watch
CBS
ESPN
Sports.
like I do, I don't even watch them anymore. I stopped because they're political. They throw politics into sports all the time, and they're myopic. It's like they're in a tunnel, and they can see certain things, and that's all they care about. All this other stuff out here on the edge of the tunnel, they don't see.
Well, and especially like you said it, the reason why he is not mentioned more in conversations or even at SEC Media Days, some of the people didn't know his stats. Some of the people don't know enough about Arkansas as a whole to even rank these guys or understand the more Arkansas wins games, the more you will see ESPN talk about KJ Jefferson.
Sure, that's the way they do. They wake up about halfway through the season and start trying to figure out, oh, well, we didn't know anything. Oh, yeah, but they'll act like they knew all along.
Well, it was so interesting. I also saw the rankings, not even just KJ. Look at how Arkansas and look, these are my top SEC teams after week 1. Arkansas's jumped in a lot of people's rankings. They were at the bottom half of things, and now they're in the middle somewhere. And you say, well, what woke you up? Where have you been all fall long anyways? But Mike E. asks, I'm wondering when the law got passed that we have to have one of our best defenders get a targeting call early in the season. It seems to me that if you don't know where your head is and is going, you probably need to just sit down somewhere.
Yeah, it's interesting because we got some other questions that I didn't use, and they were questioning that targeting call because his helmet actually hit the guy's chest. and then it went up and hit him
Yeah,
under the chin.
under right here.
And they were saying that's not targeting. Yes, it is. Here's the problem. And he hits the nail on the head. You don't lead with your helmet. You just don't. I mean, in 1960, in the fall of 1960, Bob Vanoy, 7th grade football coach in my hometown, had a whole big session about that early on in practices about how you do not tackle with your head down. He said, would you close your eyes when you make a tackle? Well, that's what you do when you tackle with your head down because you can't see anything.
You can't see anything, yeah.
So he said, don't tackle with your head down. And he told us, he told us about what a compression fracture is. He said, I still remember him doing this. He goes, watch me. Watch what my head does. I move it left, I move it right, I move it front, I move it back. It's made to move like that. It's not made to move up and down. If you hit your head on something, on the top of your head like that, it will compress, and it causes compression fractures, and you can kill yourself.
A lot of on your neck, too.
So
right?
it's as much, when they talk about targeting, this rule is as much to protect the tackler as it is the person being tackled. Because it's just, you just don't tackle with your head down. So don't do it. Tackle face up.
Yeah.
It's not as dramatic. It's not going to make the noise that it makes when you come. Even if you got your head down and you don't hit them with your helmet and hit them with your shoulder pads, when you're coming in like a bullet, oh, it's dramatic. It knocks the guy backwards. It makes a lot of noise. But if you come up chest up, you're going to much less likely for them to break away from you. That one hit that KJ absorbed and kept going.
Kept going, yeah.
If you do that with the middle of your chest and grab, you're much more likely to not have a guy break away from you like that. So just don't tackle that way.
Exactly.
And I hope they keep telling him that. I don't know. I mean, he's one of their he's their best linebacker.
Yeah.
And he will miss the first half of this game coming up because of that targeting call. And it was the correct call.
Absolutely. And I saw a photo of it, too. One of the photographers came by and they went, yeah, look, that's targeting. He was definitely head down like this.
Yeah, just
so
have
he
your head
wasn't
up.
looking up. You're right. He was definitely head down. So hopefully they're doing that in practice. We'll have to see. Mousetown says, thanks to the 4 games and 1 feature on YouTube TV, I was able to watch almost every SEC game live. Not all that impressed by Alabama or Georgia, but the Aggies with Petrino calling plays is scary, and Ole Miss looks completely rebuilt. Watch out for Widow Wayne and his reps. Did I do that right? Widow Wayne.
Widow Wayne Kiffin.
Widow Wayne Kiffin.
I don't know that I agree about Alabama and Georgia. I mean, they had big wins. I mean, what do we do here? Do we sit here and we look at the margin of victory, and because it's Alabama and Georgia, it should have been 80 points instead of 50 or whatever? Yeah. I think they're fine. But I did see both of those games. I saw the A&M game using that same feature. You had
it's so cool, right?
Yeah.
You were using, I love that.
And so the first thing I'm looking at is Petrino calling plays for the Aggies, and I'm going, yep, this doesn't look like A&M. You know, this guy knows what he's doing. That is really frightening to think about having to play those guys with him calling plays. But the team that really, if you had to name a surprise team to me this weekend, it would be Ole Miss, because they've got a quarterback that can throw it, and he's good, and they've got one that can run it, and he's good. So they can answer every question, and then their defense is improved. As much as Sam Pittman went and improved this team with the portal, I think Lane Kiffin outdid him a little bit. They have really transformed that team. I'm hoping things will start to come unraveled, but right now they look really good.
They definitely do. I was hearing a lot on social media as well about, even A&M fans too. They're going, hey, is Jimbo going to be out of a job? Because Petrino looks like a guy who could be come knocking on the door.
I think what's going to happen is Petrino's going to get a job.
Yeah.
That's why he took this.
Yeah.
He realized he's not going to advance being the head coach at Missouri State. That's not going to get him anywhere. But if he has a couple of good years calling plays for the Aggies, somebody will hire him as their head coach.
Absolutely, and I think an SEC team will take a chance on him. Probably, maybe
Florida.
That's what I was about to say. I was like, maybe Florida, because Billy Napier, that man's seat is getting pretty warm over there with the Gators there. But anyways, Eddie Burke says, you media guys have been hyping Criswell since he transferred, especially you, Mike. I was prepared to say it was a case of blowing smoke, but watching him on that one touchdown drive was an eye-opener, a big improvement over Hornsby.
What impressed me with him was the way that touchdown pass took place, because he starts off going left, which is he's a right-handed thrower, so he's going against his body. He then spots a receiver open across the middle. So he doesn't just turn and throw real fast. There was a pass rush coming at him, but he had the presence of mind to stop, reset his feet, and then what he had to do, because the coverage was pretty good on that play, he reset his feet, threw it high to a tall receiver who was able to use his height to go up and get the ball. So you had his first touchdown as a Razorback and Dozier's first touchdown as a receiver, and it was really fun to watch that.
That was really awesome to watch. I know Alyssa and me were talking about that because we were at that game. It was so cool to see just how effective he was coming into the game, and there wasn't any drop-off. You know, you just didn't have to worry when he came into the game. That was something that Sam said, that you don't have to worry about him. He had a huge smile on his face. He was like, wasn't that neat having him come in? And you're just like, he can run an offense too. I love that the Razorbacks have a good backup. Anyways, the Bionic Pig says, the way KJ two-handed the ball to the ref immediately after that running touchdown should have been familiar to the fan base. Would you equate that to a tribute? Hashtag Alex Collins. Wait, I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, he did.
Wait.
If you look at it, what he does as soon as he runs
like
up
this.
and he just hands it to him like a gift. And who did that?
Alex Collins.
Alex always did that. So nobody asked him about that, but I'm almost certain that's what he was doing.
Oh my gosh, I had no idea.
Yeah.
I didn't
so that
even
shows he knew
that.
what Collins did as a player.
Because he did it so perfectly too. He went just like,
here's your gift.
Yeah.
Here's the ball.
Here's the ball. Here you go. Oh, I love that. We need to ask him about that. We need to ask KJ about that because that was great. Razor Alex 88 says, saw that Travis Williams was in the booth yesterday. The announcers mentioned something about how he would prefer to be on the sidelines. I have a feeling T-Will is a sidelines guy and should make his way to the sidelines at some point. How do they determine who goes to the sideline and who's in the booth?
Okay, so I asked about this.
Okay.
And here's a straight scoop on that. That was his decision.
Really?
Yes, Petrino.
Petrino.
Sam Pittman didn't tell him he had to do that. It was his decision. Now, he hasn't been an offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator forever, but this was the first time as a defensive coordinator that he went up into the booth. So he did that on his own, and I'm sure he did it because he felt like he should do it, and it worked out. I don't know that they could have played much better defensively. So I don't see him coming back down to the field unless there's some sort of an issue, especially since it was his decision.
Was the broadcast making
what
did they say about
I guess they did they do these interviews with coaches the week of the game, and I'm guessing they asked him something about that, and he said, "Oh yeah, I always like to be on the sidelines with my guys."
Oh.
And so that gave the impression that he wants to do that, and somehow maybe he was told not to do it by Pittman, but I was told flat out that this was his decision. He could have done it either way, and that's what he wanted to do.
Is that something, do you know if that's something that's going to be moving forward?
I'm assuming because it worked that he'll continue to do it.
Absolutely.
We'll see.
Absolutely. We'll have to see. We'll check back in with you. Razor Alex 88. Hot Dogger on Hogville asks, first time in a long time I went to a war memorial game. When we parked there was a 16-year-old girl that had us parked so close nobody could have gotten out. If you wanted to leave early, we went ahead and left room between cars, just in case. They also ran out of bottled water during halftime. I brought an empty plastic bottle and stood in line at the water fountain to refill it. But the game, was great. How many more games are there going to be in Little Rock?
There are two scheduled, 2024 and 2025.
Yes.
And so that's all we know right now. Look, I wrote an opinion piece, and you said you read it.
I did.
I did it right after the game because I was reacting to some of the stuff I was seeing on social media, and my attitude was, give me a break, people. You just had a big win, and you're whining about it being hot, and you're whining about parking problems and ticket scanning and all that, and I was kind of going, look, and I was equating it to this. Let's say, we all know what happens when somebody opens a new restaurant. There's always a night in which they put the word out, hey, you can eat there free, right?
Yeah.
Have you done that?
Like when they give you free stuff to come into the restaurant?
Well, you can go eat there. They let people know, hey, everything's free tonight because they want the place full They want everybody to come in there and be jammed, and they want to test all their waiters and their cooks and everybody to see how well they handle a full crowd before they actually have to do it for real. So it's like a dress rehearsal.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Well, you don't get a dress rehearsal at War Memorial. They do it once every other year, and that's hard. I mean, think about it. This girl that he talked about, my guess is if she's 16, when she was 14, she was not out there parking cars.
No.
So this is the first time she's doing this. I'm sure that some of the concession stand people, maybe even the fact that they remember Sam Pittman changed the start time and moved it earlier. There might have been some people supplying stuff for the concession stand that were under the wrong impression. Have to have it here, and it came late, and then all of a sudden we have problems. We don't know what all went on. So I was kind of defending War Memorial for that reason, saying, hey, how would you like to do something once every other year for one day and then have to get it right?
Yeah.
And Clay Henry, who I respect a lot, was also on social media talking about some of these issues they have in Fayetteville every year when they have the season open.
They do
because
have some
you
issues,
haven't done a game in a while, and you just get better as the season goes along. So they've had problems with running out of water in the concession stand before during hot games. There's been parking issues. There's been ticket scanning issues. So a part of me wants to believe a little bit of that is overblown, but there were some things that I read later on that made me go, whoa, what's going on? Like some guy, I don't know if he was making this up, but he said there were wasps at the stadium. Like
I kind of believe that.
Like he said, we were sitting there and we were having to bat away the wasp. That's a complaint I've never heard. There was another, I think it was a guy that said he took his dad to the game, and he's elderly and he has to walk with a cane, and so I think there's places there where you can stop and a bus will come along and take him all the way to the stadium. He said they just drove right by him.
Oh no.
So there were all kinds of little complaints like that, and then there was a guy that said he had somebody with him and said they needed water.
Yeah.
And you go to the concession stand. Not only do they not have anything there, even the line to get water from the water fountains is like 30 minutes long. He said, we just left the game. No. He said, it's dangerous to do that.
And the people were dropping like flies in the stands. I saw people getting medical attention. Do you want to hear something funny that was from on the field that you probably didn't see on social media? But one of the SEC officials came by me, right? One of the time management guys and all the different SEC people they have on the field. And he turns to me and he goes, you like these games at War Memorial? And I go, yeah, it's my first one, actually. It's pretty nice. And he goes, yeah, they didn't have food for us at halftime. And I said, we've been working out here in the hot sun. I haven't eaten anything. We had a small window of 20 minutes at halftime where we could get food. They had no food for us. And somebody came by. He was right. Somebody came by from the stadium and go, we have food for you now. And he goes, what good does it do me now? I got to work. The game's going on. So
yeah, well.
I was like, man.
So after reading all that stuff, I started, and here's the thing. There were several people on social media that said, look, I'm an advocate for continuing to play games there.
Yeah.
I've been saying this all along. I don't feel that way anymore. So what I'm going to end up saying is, as much as I've enjoyed War Memorial, and it certainly has a place in the history of the program, it's starting to look like that even the people that want the games to continue there realize you just can't do it.
Well, I think it goes back to what we talked about, where if you decide that you want to continue them, you have to put in money and time and effort into making that stadium, a premier place to play, right?
I just don't think you can do one game a year.
Yeah.
It's just too hard on the staff.
It really is. It really is. I think another question about War Memorial is from the next question asker, and JJ Hogg, who wants to know, we sold out War Memorial Stadium in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, regardless of who we played, sometimes playing 4 games a year there. No wonder the games are going away if we can't even sell out one game. What happened?
I mean, that's the easiest question in the world to answer.
Yeah.
What happened is they stopped playing SEC games there. I mean, this is like a no-brainer. You're going to play. If they were playing LSU in that game, you think that wouldn't have been full?
Well, to be fair, too, Mike, what was the official
number? It was 44,000, and because of the ticket scanning issues, I think they've estimated there might have been 50,000 people there. There was several thousand that didn't get their tickets scanned.
And so, exactly. My boyfriend was one of them. The lady just waved them in, and he was like, okay, well, I didn't get my ticket scanned. But it holds 54,000. So I think that was actually a really good turnout.
Probably a good turnout considering the heat, and this is Western Carolina. But yeah, that's not hard to figure out. If you still played an SEC game there every year, Missouri, the crowds were bigger. It was pretty full for Missouri the last time they played there.
Well, exactly, and I'm sticking up for the crowd there because it was pretty. I mean, it was pretty packed for how hot it was. Noon kickoff. I felt like I was like, this is pretty full. Yeah. So I was very impressed. It could have almost been a sellout for Western Carolina. Yeah. Of all teams. Anyways, Blood Red Hog says, let's rip off the Band-Aid and stop playing games at War Memorial Stadium after the Arkansas State game next year. At this point, or 2 years from now, right?
He
means 2
wrong.
years from now. Okay. At this point, the cons far outweigh the pros to give up a campus home game to play at a poorly maintained stadium.
And again, there would have been a time when I would have said I'd have downplayed that a little bit, but I think that's where we're headed. Yeah. I do. You just get the feeling that it's shifting in that direction. College football is changing so much anyway with so many other big issues. I think this whole deal about playing an off-campus, I mean, Ole Miss used to do it. They haven't done it in years. Who else? I guess Florida still does it.
Well, Florida still does it, but it's the Florida-Georgia game, so it's kind of, a big deal.
So they may be the only ones still doing that, but they play it more like a Jerry World thing for Arkansas.
Exactly.
I just think this second stadium thing, and they used to play a second stadium in Jackson. I've been to that from Mississippi, and they don't do that. I haven't done it in years. It's just not done anymore. It's just, it doesn't work.
Well, if it's done properly, right, it's done well. And I do agree, because Florida, Georgia, I've been to that game many times.
Yeah, but again, that's at a pro stadium.
It is at a pro stadium, and it's done well. The fans show up in droves. They call it the world's largest cocktail party. It's quite it's quite an event, if that makes sense. So, yes, I think if it's done well, a neutral site game can be so much fun, can be an awesome experience. If it's not done well, like Blood Red Hog is talking about,
what if
then
they
it's not good.
What if they had some stadium like on the close to the state line of Georgia and Florida, and they were like, oh yeah, we'll just play this here. Come on, it wouldn't work.
No, it wouldn't work. That definitely wouldn't work because also it's an SEC game, so it would be packed out. There would be people trying to get tickets. If it was played at War Memorial, there might be people trying to get in and find ways to get in because 54,000 wouldn't be enough to hold it. But I digress. We'll see what happens after that Arkansas State game in 2025?
2025.
There we go. Marty Bird's Proxy says, we've had some great coaching staffs over the years, particularly during Coach Broyles' tenure. Johnny Majors and Barry Switzer on the same staff, for instance. Is there a particular coaching staff that stands out more than others during your time covering the Razorbacks, Mike?
Yeah, I would say the one right now.
Oh, I love that.
I mean, Lou Holtz had some good coaches on his staff, but there were also some issues. Hatfield, Frank went round and round with Hatfield. Hatfield was a great head coach himself, but he had some coaches on his staff that probably weren't and that was the Southwest Conference. They weren't Southwest Conference level coaches, so there was a problem there. Danny Ford had a staff that was dysfunctional. They didn't like each other. That wasn't good. Houston Nutt had some pretty good coaches, but there were some guys from time to time that probably they'd have been better off with somebody else. So you can just go through the whole list, and I can't think of anybody that just had a really good staff. But I think this one is, and I'm not talking about Bielema's first couple of years, first 3 years even. I'm talking about now that he's made his first big change with his coordinators. And what's been done with
Pittman's first couple of years,
not
Bielema. You're good. I was confused there, but Pittman, yeah.
But what he's done with, hiring his first two new coordinators and then what they've done, I think this staff right now, we'll have to see. I mean, this is one game. Yeah. But I think this may be the best staff since the 60s. I know they're as good or better. Ask Otis. I guarantee you they recruit better than the others.
Oh, yeah. I think you're definitely right on that.
I mean, do we see somebody that doesn't know how to coach? You hear any rumors that, he's not a very good coach, but he's a good recruiter? I think these guys can coach, and they're good recruiters. And the players like them.
They do. They really like them. There's no doubt about that one. We'll have to see how it pans out because I feel like it's still too early to tell.
Well,
we need one season, and then I feel like I can get back to you on.
I read something on my phone on the internet this morning that just had a big impact on me. And he was talking about media, not fans. Whoever this was, and I can't remember who it was, but he said, one game into the year, it's okay to make observations. It's really bad to come to conclusions. So if you're in the media out there, Yes, watch the Florida State LSU game and you can make an observation. Boy, Florida State looked really good. And what happened to LSU in the second half? You can make an observation.
But don't say
But
Florida
when you
State's
say
going to win.
Florida State's going to win the national championship and LSU's dog meat, you just don't know that yet.
No, we don't know that. That's the funniest thing when you see all these week one games and people are so high on certain teams and you're like, a lot of things can happen. That's one game. Let them play a couple. Then you can get back to me. I agree with you completely on that, Mike. And our final question of the day is from D.G. Adams, who asked if Coach Nutt had managed to stay out of the unpleasant entanglements, offensive coordinators, quarterbacks, telephone calls, et cetera, could he have stayed long-term as the Arkansas head coach? His record was surely good enough.
I think the only thing that might have affected him was the fact that there was a part of the fan base that didn't like his play calling. They thought he was too much run-oriented. They wanted a passing element to the offense. Whether or not that would have forced some sort of issue down the road, I'm not sure. But here's what I do know. If there's one way he could have avoided all those entanglements that they talked about, all he had to do, and these were his friends, one in particular, boosters who he liked, who forced that issue, forced it on him of hiring Malzahn. And I've talked about what the issues were. They didn't tell him this, but I think he knew the long term. They wanted Nutt to be the AD and they wanted Malzahn to be the head coach. If Houston had stood his ground and said, hey, I love you guys, but I'm the head coach and I'm the play caller, people say you wouldn't have got Mitch Mustang. Yes, you would have. He was already committed and he decommitted when Malzahn was hired. So hiring Malzahn would not have affected that. So you might have lost Damian Williams and Ben Cleveland, two guys. So what? I really believe that team could have won the national championship with either Casey Dick or Mitch Mustang as the quarterback, either one of those guys, because it was a team that had all those running backs and the passing game. Either one of those guys would have been as effective enough to augment that running game with the defense they had to win a national championship. But when you threw that turmoil in there, code red meetings, players mad at each other, fans getting on message boards and boosters just trying to lobby people like me and other people in the media, and there was just everybody, that created so much chaos that it hurt that team. You take that away from that, and I think that team wins the national championship. Ooh. There's also another way he could have done it, and that's simply to redshirt Mitch Mustang. He told me flat out he expected to be redshirted his freshman year. That whole thing got pushed on him because they got beat by USC in the first game, and Frank went in there and said, you got to start him. You got to start him. Well, if he'd have stuck by his guns and said, no, he needs time to develop, we're going to redshirt him. And people say he would have gotten mad. No, he told me I expected to be redshirted. So he could have avoided all that controversy by taking that route too.
Interesting.
So if he had done all that stuff, he might still be the coach here.
Ooh, it would be, is there an alternate universe where he maybe is still the coach here and Arkansas has won a national title?
I don't know.
We'll see. Well, it might be out there. I'm excited to see Hogs Plus has a Houston Nutt documentary coming out, I think this week. I hope I'm right on that. Don't hate me, Saw, if I didn't get that right. But I'm excited to watch that and see, what everyone says. And I'm excited to learn a little bit more about those years here in Arkansas. But that'll do it for this week's Ask Mike. We'll see you next Monday to answer more of your questions.